Okay, I'm going to do a demo of the drawing editor, but first let me show you the way you used to make drawings before Ignition 8.3 so we can compare the two methods. Then I'll edit a built-in symbol and finally show you how to set up bindings using the drawing editor. So let's say we have a manufacturing facility that uses robot arms, and we want to represent those on our HMI with some custom drawings. First, we need a blank drawing. I have one here. And if we look in the perspective properties, we can see it has a view box of 0, 0, 100, 100, which just means that x goes from 0 to 100 and y goes from 0 to 100. We can change that view box later if stuff goes out of bounds. One thing to keep in mind is that depending on which image editors you're familiar with, the SVG standard of doing things might be a little bit backward. X goes from left to right from 0 positive, but Y goes from top to bottom when it gets more positive. Just something to keep in mind. We can see the elements here is empty, so let's add a new element. I click on this plus, it creates a blank element of type group, and I can switch it to a path with this dropdown, but it doesn't populate any of the properties I need. I know that a path needs property D for path data, and that describes how the path should be drawn using letters and numbers. It can be hard to remember them all, so at the end of this webinar, there's some online resources you can reference if you're using this method. To start, I'm going to use a move command with the letter M, and I'm going to go to 50, 80. That's halfway across in the X and 80% down in the Y. And then I'm going to draw a horizontal line of length 10. And when you're using the path data, a capital letter like this M means go to that exact point, 50, 80. A lowercase letter like this H means from wherever you are, move this direction in the X or Y. So H10 means add 10 in the X, whereas capital H10 would mean draw from where you are to X equals 10. I hit enter. You can't see anything yet because we need a stroke property. So I go to properties, click on plus, select stroke, and then underneath stroke, I click the plus, and it's narrowed down the list of properties to add. Let's add a stroke paint. We'll make it red, and there's the line we just drew. So let's keep drawing the arm, and we're going to use some horizontal and vertical lines. So H is horizontal, V is vertical, and remember, positive in the Y is toward the bottom of the screen. I want to go up, so I do negative 40, and that draws a vertical line up 40, and then a horizontal line, 40 in the X. And we can see that black background. Because the shape isn't connected back to the beginning yet, it's filling the background with the default color of black. So we can add a fill property and a fill paint. And let's make this gray. And when you put a color in here, you can either type in a name of a color, or you can use the color picker or the palette for the standard options for perspective colors. Let's keep drawing this arm. I'm going to go vertical line of 10, whoops, wrong direction, negative 10, and then horizontal negative 50. And then one other command in the path data is Z. And that just means from wherever you are, draw a line back to the first position. So I don't need to know the height of this. I just say Z, and it connects right back to the start. We've already set up this path to have data, stroke, and fill. So when I'm going to draw the end effector, which I'm just going to draw a gripper, we can just right click and duplicate and change the path data, and it'll already be set up for us. One downside to this method is that you have to either guess and check where you want to start drawing or do the math. So I want to start the end effector from this point up here. And I know that I started this right here, and it's 50, 80. Let's figure out the X. It's 50 plus 10 plus 40. So it's 100 in the X. I can just delete all of this, M100. And then this is Y equals 80. And then I went up 40. So that's 40. And then up 10. So it's Y equals 30. And then let's just draw a line. Perfect. We got it right. So now, instead of just a horizontal or vertical line, let's draw a diagonal line. You do that with L. Then we need X and Y to describe how we want to draw. So let's draw 5 in the X and up 5 in the Y. So 5 and then -5. That's a nice little diagonal line. And then we'll keep drawing the arm like this, or the gripper like this. And as I'm typing this, I'm hitting enter after each one. But if you wanted, you could draw a bunch of lines. You could draw a bunch of segments and then hit enter at the end and see what happened. But see, I messed some stuff up. I needed to go -10 here. There, that looks better. So it's useful to just hit enter after every couple to see how it's looking. And then h -10, let's go -5 in the X, -5 in the Y, and then that Z command again. And it connects back to the start. That's looking pretty good. It's looking like a robot arm, but let's add some joints to it to kind of cover up those seams. So I click on this plus, it adds a group, and I'm going to switch it to a circle. Now with a circle, we need a center point, CX, CY, and a radius R. You can rename properties. So I just duplicated it a couple times instead of hitting this plus, selecting a value, etc. So let's try to put a circle right here. So I know it's 130. Let's start there and make it a radius 10, 5, 8. 8 looks pretty good. Now the Y we need to change. Let's make this 25. Nope. 35. Okay, that looks pretty good, but let's move it over in the X. Um, about there. But let's move that gripper over a little bit. One benefit of using the relative moves with the lowercase letters with a path is that we can adjust that first point, and then the rest of the drawing path will move with us. So if we change this to 110, it moves the whole arm or the whole gripper over, but it should probably be 105. That looks pretty good. And then this could be 100. Okay, I'm going to leave this joint for black right now, but if we wanted, we could add a stroke and a fill to change the color. Just like before, when I duplicated the path to make a gripper, I can right click on this circle and hit duplicate. And now there's two circles right here. And since I know it's going to be at the same Y, I can just adjust this X and move it over. 50, 55. Okay, 55 looks pretty good. And then I can duplicate it again. And the Y is going to be like 80. Okay, now we have some joints. And let's make a base for this robot arm. So I'm going to add another element. I'm going to change it to rect for rectangle. And a rectangle needs an X, a Y, a width, and a height. Unlike the circle, where it's the center, X and Y for a rectangle are the upper left corner. So if I want this to be 30 wide and 20 tall, by default, since I don't have X and Y typed in, it starts at 0, 0. But I know I want it to center on this base. And if the center, this corner is 50, it's width 10, so 55, minus 15, so X is going to be 40. And then Y, we could probably just have it be the same Y, 80. Let's give it a color. Fill. Change to object. Paint. Let's make this blue. Oh, but it's in front of that joint. So we can reorder things by clicking next to this arrow and dragging it up. And now it's behind the joint. And that looks okay. We can change the color to make it more realistic. White, let's just make it gray. That's fine. It's a pretty good looking robot arm. Only took a couple minutes, about 5 minutes, and we had to remember the structure of each object we were adding. It's not that complicated to do, but it can get tedious for more complicated shapes. Let's see how much faster and easier it is using the drawing tools. I have another blank drawing with the same empty elements, the same view box, and I can just right click and hit edit drawing. And I have a grid set up with 10 spacing, and I can just click this path tool and start drawing. And when I draw, it shows me what point I'm going to. X is 31, Y is 24. Right now it's completely free, but if I hold control, it snaps to 15-degree increments. So I'm going to draw a right angle here and try to line it up with those points. Another keyboard shortcut to keep in mind, that Z command, I don't know how to click exactly on that point, but if I just hit enter, it joins back to the start point. And if we look over here, it's already made a fill color, it's already made a stroke, and that's pretty quick. Let's say we want to move this over here. We can just drag and click, and since I have snapping to grid turned on, it aligns nicely. Now let's add an end effector. I'm going to hold control again because I want it to snap to 45. And go like this. And I'm just clicking and still holding control so that I get nice clean snaps. I hit enter. And then we can drag that over a little bit. And since I have snapping turned on to 10 pixel width, I'm using the arrow keys to get it exactly where I want. Another handy keyboard shortcut. Now let's add some joints. With this circle tool, it makes an ellipse by default. But if I hold control, then it makes a perfect circle. And I can see as I'm adjusting it, the width and height over here. So if I make this 12 and 12, circle shrinks. That looks pretty good. Now we can either draw a new circle or we can, just like before, right click and hit duplicate. And then I'm just use the arrow keys, slide it over here, and then right click on this one and hit duplicate, and then slide it down here with the arrow keys. And then I click on the rectangle tool and I draw it right here. And just like before, it drew on top of that last joint. So I can click over here in the elements list and drag it above. There's also these buttons off to the side, bring to the front, move forward one layer, move backward one layer, or send to the very back. You can also add a group or duplicate or even delete elements right from here. I hit apply, and there we go. Pretty much the same robot arm in less than a minute. A little bit easier. We didn't have to remember anything and we didn't have to do any math. But what about editing? Because this arm looks okay, but what if we want it to be a little bit more dynamic pose? Instead of straight out at a right angle, what if we had it elbowed back a little bit? So let's right click, or we're not going to edit this one in that drawing editor. We're going to open the elements, and what we have to do is change the path definition. So instead of horizontal and vertical lines, we're going to have to do those diagonal lines. So let's see. Instead of H10 is okay. Instead of V negative 40, let's do L for a diagonal line, and then it's going to be minus 20 in the X, minus 40 in the Y. Okay, looks all right. And then instead of this H40, we'll do L40 and down 10 in the Y. And then instead of this V10, we'll do 5 in the X, negative 10 in the Y. And then instead of this H negative 50, we'll do an L negative 50, negative 10, negative 20. That doesn't look quite right. Negative 60, 55. Whoops, negative 55. Kind of hard to do. You got to guess where each point goes, and it's hard to get the proportions quite right. Negative 60. Okay, negative 60, negative 15 looks okay. And now I want to add a point instead of just Z. So I'm going to do another L and then minus 5, 10 in the Y. That doesn't look quite right. So maybe let's adjust this one back to 50. And let's just do 10. It's okay. The joints will cover it. So now if we expand these other groups, we need to move that gripper just like I showed before by adjusting that first point. So let's see how it looks at 85. That's probably close enough. And then in Y, maybe 45. That's too far. Maybe 40. Okay. And then we can move the circles. And since our circles aren't labeled, they're all called circle. The best way to figure out which one's which is just looking at the X coordinate. This one's the farthest over in X, and that one has the biggest X, so I think that's the first one. So we want to move it to about 80, 45. Yeah, that looks okay. And then the next one, we want to move to the left, maybe 40, maybe 35. Okay, that looks pretty good. Wasn't too hard, but we had to do a lot of guess and check, and I don't know about exactly those proportions. But how easy is it to edit in the drawing editor? We just right click and hit edit drawing. And then when we click on a path, we can click on this path tool up here. And then we can just click and drag the points exactly where we want. Let's move this over here. But we have to add a point. So how do we do that? Well, if you click on a point and then hold Control and click on another point, you see both are highlighted. And then I hit Insert on my keyboard and it adds a point right between. And this point we can drag up and over here. And then we're done. And then we can just click on the circles and we can adjust them over here and move this one down here with the keyboard. And actually, I think this circle might want to be a little bit bigger, but let's try to adjust this path behind it real quick. I can just hide this here like that. And that looks pretty good. I guess I don't have to adjust it after all. Hit apply, much quicker. We were able to edit completely visually where we could drag the object exactly where we wanted it instead of having to guess and check. But what about editing an existing symbol like Christine mentioned? So if we open the perspective components and we look down at the bottom, there's these 5 symbols that are built in. I'm going to drag a valve, and I want this to be a P&ID valve, just a generic 2-way valve, but I want to change it to a 3-way ball valve. So first I have to change it to the appearance that I want. And remember, when you convert to a drawing, it loses that ability to switch between P&ID, mimic, and simple. And any bindings I had, I'll have to redo. Then I go to right click, convert to drawing. And now you see it's just an SVG. It has the elements, it has a view box, and we can right click and hit edit drawing, and then it appears in the drawing editor. So to make it a 3-way valve, I need to add a triangle down here on the bottom. I can use the path tool and draw a shape like this. I could use the polygon tool, add a shape like this, change it to 3 and rotate it. Or to make things really simple on myself, I could just click an existing triangle, select it here, right click, hit duplicate, click on the rotate button, and then I could move it right where it needs to go. And now I have an exact copy of something that was already in the drawing, rotated the way I want with the same fill color and the same stroke color. Let's make this a ball valve by adding a circle. So I'm going to click right here and hold Control and drag a circle about that big. But you'll notice it doesn't have the same color and the line on the outside is a little bit thinner. So if we click on any of these triangles, we can see here's the fill color, here's the stroke color, and it's a stroke width of 2. So let's copy that fill color, and then we can paste it in here. And then let's copy the stroke color, and we'll remember it's width 2. Paste it in here and change that to 2. And there we go. It looks just like it was built into Ignition. But you'll notice this white box around the outside. That's the view box. That is what will crop the image when it's used in a view within Ignition. Right now, this triangle is outside of that view box. So we need to adjust this height to something higher to fill it. So how about, it's 48, let's try 50, no, 55, no, 58. Well, that's pretty good, but the width is 70. Let's just make it height 60. So it's 70 by 60, and then we hit apply, and there we go. Just like Christine said, any bindings you had on it before it was converted to a drawing will have to be redone. So let's take a look at setting up some bindings. I'm going to copy this robot arm, the one we did in the drawing editor. And in my fictitious manufacturing facility, I have a bunch of different robot arms represented by UDTs that say the location, the type of arm it is, the state, and have some text to say stopped or faulted. I'm just going to paste this into that view. And then we have a representation of the robot arm. I'm going to hit save. And if we look at our overview that shows all of our different robot arms, it's already looking a little bit better. But let's put a binding on it. So on this view, I am passing in the path of the tag that represents a robot arm. And we have, if you look down here in the tag browser, loader 1 has location, state, state text, and type. State is what I want to look at. I want to change the color based on the state. So I'm going to click on it, hit edit drawing, and then I want to change the color of everything. So I can either click on each element one at a time by holding Control and clicking, or over in this elements list, I can hold Shift and select everything. I could also hold Control and click each thing, or I could just draw a box around everything. However you do it, once all the elements are selected, you can change the fill color and the stroke at the same time. And you see the little binding icons? Let's set up a binding on the fill color. It'll be a tag, an indirect tag, and we'll use that param, whoops, not page, view param path. And we're going to look at state, and it's passing in 0. I have it set up so that 0 is stopped, 1 is running, 2 is faulted, and 3 is error. So let's add a map and add 0, 1, and 2. Those are the states we care about, and everything else will be this fallback. And instead of value, let's change it to color. So when it's stopped, we want it to be gray. When it's running, we want it to be white. When it's faulted, we want it to be a slightly darker gray. And the fallback, if there's some other error, let's just make it red for now. Hit apply, hit OK, and they all change to that light gray. Hit apply there, go back to the overview. Okay, there we go. 4 of our robot arms are running, 2 are stopped, 2 are faulted. But those gray colors are really close, and it's kind of hard to tell which one's faulted and which one's just stopped. So why don't we add something else to our drawing? Special symbol to show that it's faulted. So I'm going to go over here and click this plus to add a group. I'm going to name it faulted. And then I'm going to add a symbol. I'm going to make it a triangle. And I'm going to try to align it as best I can here. And I'm going to make its fill color yellow. And let's do orange. Yellow's a little harsh. We can type colors in here, or we can click on that, and there's a nice color picker. And then we need to add some text. So I'm going to add a big exclamation mark. And I want to center it on that triangle. So what I can do is I can hold Control and select both, and then using these align tools, align middle, and then align horizontal. And I want to move these into that group. So I select both of them and I drag them on top of the group. And now we can see they're nested in one tab. So they're under this faulted group. And then I can click and move the whole group at once. I'm going to put the icon down here. And I'm going to put a binding on this opacity with another tag, indirect binding on the path. Whoops, I hit enter too quick. Path state. And then I want to do another map. And only when it's faulted, which is 2, do we want the opacity. Oh, wait, no, we want the opacity to be 1. We want it shown. Otherwise, we want it to be 0. Hit apply. It disappears because it's set to stopped. Hit apply, hit save. And when we go to the overview, our 2 faulted robots have that little symbol. Same drawing, but now we can represent a bunch of different states. But these robot arms are different arms. These are weld cells. These are paint line, or that one's a paint line. These are assemblers. These ones are packagers. So let's modify our drawing again and add some different end effectors. Right now we just have a gripper, and it's this one. So let's just double click and rename to gripper. And let's draw another one. I have the UDT set up so that based on the type, well, let me show you. There is a type tag. 0 means it has a gripper. 1 means it has a welder. 2 means it has a paint sprayer. And 3 means it has a box lifter. So we can draw those different types of end effectors. So we have a gripper, and we need to draw about the same size a weld arm. So I can just click and draw straight lines, or if I click and hold, it makes a curved line. And I actually clicked too far, so let me click. Let me start that again. I'm going to draw a little straight segment, and then I'm going to click and hold here, and then draw a straight line here, and then I'm going to click and hold here. Whoops. Let me undo. Great, won't let me undo. But what we can do is click on this line tool and click on these endpoints and move them around. I click C on the keyboard to turn it into a curve, and then I can make it curved. It's easier to do when you're drawing, but if you mess up like I did, you can always fix it later. And then I'm going to click this point and this point and hit Insert. And then select just that point. And there we go. And then we want the fill color. Let's just make it red for now. I didn't connect it back up to the beginning, but that doesn't really matter because it's going to be hidden by the circle. And then we also need a paint sprayer. So let's make this just a generic looking spray nozzle. Hit enter. And then we should name them. So this one is going to be welder. And this one is going to be, oops, paint. I accidentally copied the text. Welder. That one, right? No, that one's paint. Paint. And this one's weld. Naming things is a good thing to do because otherwise you'll lose the components you've made. We click on here and let's draw that box lifter. So I'm going to hold Control and snap to some nice angles. And I'm just going to make a really big gripper. Okay. Let's rename that box. Now I want to reorder all of these to the same depth as gripper. So I can click them all and then drag them up and then drag them up further. And now they're all behind the circle. But they're not changing color based on the tag. So I can I can select them all and then change the fill color and do the same kind of indirect tag binding. View params path. And we do state. And we add a transform. And we do 0, 1, 2. And we want colors. And it's saved our colors for us, the most recent ones. So it's not going to take very long to set that up. Hit apply. Great. Now they're all the correct color, but I only want to see one at a time. So if we select all 4, we can set up the binding on one of them and then or set up the binding one time and then change it on each one. So we want the opacity to be based on the type. We do another indirect tag binding, type, and it says 3. 3 is a box lifter. Now, just for now, since I have gripper selected first, I'm going to make it so that gripper, which is 0, gives an output of 1 opacity. Everything else is 0. Hit apply. And then I'm going to click on paint and edit that binding. Why is my binding editor doing that? Let's hit apply and see if that'll fix it. Gripper, when type is 0, it's shown. When paint won't let me do it. That's weird. What is going on? Okay. Well, I don't know why it's not working right now to let me see that binding, but we can always do the bindings through here. So if we look through, we can see name is paint, name is welder, it's gripper, and the name is box. So on this opacity, there's a little binding symbol. We can right click, or we can just click and then paint. When type is 2, we want it to be shown. And then on welder, type is 1, we want it to be shown. And on box, type is 3, we want it to be shown. Hit OK. And it's a loader, and now it shows the box. Let's hit save, go to overview. And now, with one drawing and a couple bindings, we now have representations of different kinds of robots. Oh, and it looks like I might have hit undo on that faulted. Let's go back and edit that. Easy enough to redo. Indirect tag. Ramps path. Date. Map. 2 is 1. Everything else is 0. Hit apply. Apply. And go back to overview. And there we go. Very quick to set up a custom drawing, to set up bindings, to draw custom end effectors. And now we have a lot more visual interest on our HMI. We can see at a glance if we're not familiar with a certain type of robot. Oh, does it look like this drawing? Okay, that is that robot. We have a little faulted symbol because the stopped and faulted are so close. And we have different colors to represent different states. It looks a lot better than just plain text. And it really helps us add some visual interest using the drawing editor. Let's get back to the rest of the slides and we'll talk about some best practices. Some best practices that apply to just about every SVG you make, whether it's with the drawing editor or using the older method, is grouping your elements. Group your items in a way that makes sense, and that'll make it much easier to navigate your drawing. As you saw when I was making that drawing of the robot arm, it only had about 7 or 8 components. So they were all at the root level, and there was only one group for the faulted symbol. If your drawing gets very complicated, you're going to really appreciate having them in groups instead of all at the root level. It also helps to name your elements. If you're navigating through, when I had to go to the old method and look at the properties directly, I saw this one's named welder, this one's named paint. Naming something south conveyor belt instead of rect 5 makes it a lot easier to find what you're looking for. And just as a rule of thumb, keep it under 1,000 elements in a single drawing, especially if you have a lot of complicated bindings, changing opacity, color, stroke, fill, etc. Of course, it varies based on your use case. You can have some very, very complicated drawings that work just fine. But as a rule of thumb, I found about 1,000. After about 1,000 elements, you start to see some performance impacts. And use keyboard shortcuts. When you're using the drawing editor, I used a few: insert, enter, escape, the arrow keys, but there's a full list at this link in our Ignition 8.3 drawing editor documentation. And the slides will be available so you can follow that link. Here's a few other SVG resources that are helpful for if you're learning about SVGs, whether you're using the drawing whether you're using the drawing editor, the older method, or an external tool. W3 Schools has pages for just about every type of property and element that SVGs can have, with examples that can be edited live in your browser. to see how things change. SSSVG is another good resource, but focused a bit more on an introduction to SVG, where it builds upon previous knowledge. It's fully interactive though, with sliders, drop downs, and color pickers, so you can see how adjusting certain properties changes what shapes look like. And if you're curious about more advanced SVG techniques, including animations, check out my session at this year's ICC late September. Registration for the conference will be available soon.